In the silent, echoing depths of history, we hear the piercing shriek of a train whistle tearing through the air, the cacophonous clang of hammers striking coal, and the pungent aroma of machine oil. These are the whispers of a monumental era, the Victorian Age. Welcome to an unparalleled journey, where we will peel back the vibrant layers of one of the world's most extraordinary monarchs, Queen Victoria, and uncover how she forged an empire with an iron will and an unyielding heart. From the nascent years of a young, untested monarchy to the breathtaking zenith of an empire upon which the sun truly never set, you will witness Britain's spectacular metamorphosis. We will delve into the dark underbelly of industrial prosperity, where groundbreaking inventions walked hand in hand with profound societal suffering. You'll experience the fairy tale love story and the crushing tragedy of loss that refined a queen, transforming her from a figure of vulnerability into the legendary Iron Queen. Join us as we explore distant colonial uprisings, world-altering innovations, and the ceaseless struggle of a single woman bearing the destiny of millions. This isn't just a history lesson, it is an epic saga of power, love, and resilience. Don't miss a single moment of this captivating exploration. Please hit that like button to support us, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next compelling stories, and leave a comment below to share your thoughts on this extraordinary reign. Join us as we uncover Victoria's indelible legacy, a story that will live forever.
The night of June 19, 1837, descended upon London, not with a gentle hush, but with the tolling of the great bell from Windsor Castle, thundering like a clap of thunder through the thick velvet curtains of Kensington Palace. It was a death knell for King William IV, yet a birth pang for a new era. You, a mere girl of 18, Alexandrina Victoria, were deep in slumber within your familiar chamber, the gentle rhythm of your breath a stark contrast to the seismic shift occurring beyond your walls. Suddenly, a furious rapping echoed against your door, tearing through the tranquil veil of night, urgent as a heartbeat after a fright. The scent of burnt candle wax mingled with the musty odor of old papers in the chilly room where you were abruptly awakened by your mother, the Duchess of Kent, and Sir John Conroy, the Royal Comptroller. A shiver, cold as a winter draught, ran down your spine as you felt the thin fabric of your nightgown cling to your skin. You descended the grand staircase, each step a descent into an unknown fate, to confront two towering, imposing figures, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain, Lord Conroy. Their eyes, gleaming in the flickering candlelight, were a blend of curiosity and scrutiny, like nocturnal owls scrutinizing their unsuspecting prey. A resounding gavel strike echoed through the silent dawn, a sound as heavy as the tonnage of coal being excavated from the mines in northern England, crushing the last vestiges of your innocence. A solemn voice declared, "Your Majesty, the King is dead. You are now Queen." You, a girl who had never been allowed to make a single decision for yourself, a life held captive by rigid control, were now burdened with the weight of an entire empire. The damp scent of the palace air seemed to intertwine with the tang of fear and anxiety in your very chest, a suffocating embrace. You stepped into the Privy Council chamber, a room heavy with the weight of centuries of power, the air thick with anticipation. Dozens of aged aristocrats and seasoned politicians, their faces carved with the lines of ambition and experience, turned to face you. Their eyes, sharp as needles, seemed to prick at your very skin, dissecting your every movement, searching for weakness. You felt an overwhelming sense of utter isolation, a lone ship in a vast, stormy sea, with no one beside you to share the crushing burden that had so suddenly descended. The scratching sound of the quill on parchment, a whisper of destiny, as you signed the first proclamation of your reign, echoed in the profound silence. Each stroke of the pen felt like carving your name into the very bedrock of history. The air in the chamber was cold, a chill that seeped into your bones, accentuated by the faint, acrid scent of old ink and the heavy, cloying perfume worn by the gathered dignitaries. You heard the dry coughs of some older noblemen, small explosions in the vast stillness, a testament to the oppressive atmosphere. This was not merely a formality, it was a rite of passage, a plunge into the icy depths of absolute power. The ink on the proclamation was barely dry when the first true test of your nascent authority arrived, a serpent uncoiling in your own court. Lord Conroy, the former comptroller to your mother, and the architect of the suffocating Kensington system that had held you captive like a caged bird, immediately sought to solidify his waning influence. His demand was clear, a velvet glove concealing an iron fist. He insisted on being appointed your private secretary, a position that would grant him unfettered control over every piece of information flowing in and out of your nascent court, essentially making him the gatekeeper to your reign. You knew, with the certainty of a dawning sun, that to allow this would be to shackle yourself once more to the very chains you had just broken. "My dearest Majesty," Conroy began, his voice smooth as polished stone, yet with an underlying patronizing lilt. "Having been accustomed for many years to offering guidance, I truly believe I am the most suitable person to continue assisting your Majesty in these challenging early days." His words were honeyed poison, designed to lull you back into the comfortable cage of dependency. You felt your initial tremor of nervousness, a fleeting butterfly in your stomach, quickly solidify into resolve, hard as granite. Your voice, though initially a little shaky, like a fragile sapling in a storm, steadily gained strength, becoming as firm as the steel girders that were beginning to rise in the industrial heartlands. "Thank you, Sir John. I appreciate your past service and your perceived capability," you replied, your gaze unwavering, a direct beam of sunlight cutting through the shadows of his presumption. "However, I have decided to appoint Lord Melbourne as my private secretary." Conroy's face drained of color like a fading photograph. His eyes widened in genuine shock, a man caught utterly off guard. "But, Your Majesty," he stammered, his usual smooth demeanor crumbling like dry earth, "but that is unprecedented. You require someone already familiar with your affairs, someone who knows your particular needs and routines." He cast a quick, desperate glance toward your mother, the Duchess of Kent, a silent plea for intervention. But she, sensing the shift in tower, merely bowed her head, a gesture of silent retreat. Her once unwavering support for Conroy was now a phantom limb, present only in memory. Your eyes, like twin flames, met his, holding his gaze, your voice now ringing with undeniable authority, each word a hammer blow against his crumbling defiance. "I understand, Sir John, and I also believe that I require a fresh start, a clean slate." You paused, a knowing, almost mischievous glint in your eyes. "Rules are meant to be made, aren't they, Sir John?" The question hung in the air, a challenge thrown down like a gauntlet, emphasizing your newfound and absolute authority. The room, which moments ago had felt suffocatingly tense, now seemed to hum with the aftermath of your pronouncement. You could almost taste the thick, acrid tang of Conroy's crushed ambition. A few discreet gulps of surprise could be heard from some of the witnessing courtiers, small admissions of awe. Conroy's cigarette smoke, which had previously curled lazily in the air, now seemed to choke the very breath from his lungs. This was no longer the docile girl he had sought to control. This was a queen, forged in the fires of solitude, already taking her first decisive steps towards becoming the Iron Queen.
Later that afternoon, after a whirlwind of ceremonial duties that left your head spinning like a top, you found a rare moment of solitude. You stood by a grand window in the palace, gazing out over the sprawling expanse of London, a vast, living tapestry woven with smoke and struggle. In the distance, tall factory chimneys stood sentinel, belching forth black smoke like fire-breathing dragons, their plumes darkening the very sky, devouring the innocence of the clouds. This wasn't merely a city. It was a beast awakening, its breath acrid with the promise of industry and the grim reality of human cost. The year was 1837, and the population of London had swelled to an astonishing 1.7 million souls, a colossal human tide surging through the narrow streets. The opulence of your palace, a gilded cage protecting you from the raw, unvarnished world, stood in stark, almost cruel contrast to the grimy reality of industrial poverty that lay just beyond your sight, a gaping wound on the city's face. You could almost feel the distant tremble of the earth from the ceaseless machinery, the persistent thrum of progress. The faint, sooty smell of coal dust, carried on the gentle breeze, seemed to cling to your very senses, a constant low hum beneath the grand facade of your new life. Then the deep, resonant chime of Big Ben, a solemn, powerful voice, echoed through the urban sprawl, booming like the call of duty itself, reminding you of the immense responsibility now resting upon your young shoulders. The chilling sensation from the ancient windowpane pressed against your hand, a cold reminder of the immense weight of the world outside and the fragile warmth of your own existence. You watched as the smoke plumes stretched towards the horizon, reaching like skeletal fingers into the pale sky. This was the true face of your empire, a landscape of paradox, where immense wealth and squalor existed side by side, two sides of the same tarnished coin. The Industrial Revolution, a colossal engine of change, was not merely a concept in textbooks. It was a roaring reality, a living, breathing entity shaping the lives of millions, a force both dazzling and dreadful. You knew, with a clarity that cut through the fog of your inexperience, that your reign would be defined not just by the grand pronouncements of Parliament, but by how you navigated this new, unfamiliar terrain of progress and pain. The weight of the crown, which had felt like a physical burden only hours before, now transformed into a mental crucible, forging a new resolve within you. You had to learn, and quickly. You had to lead, not just by birthright, but by sheer force of will. The strains of distant street musicians, faint and mournful, drifted on the wind, a bittersweet lullaby to your new reality. The initial shock, a sudden plunge into icy water, was beginning to recede, replaced by a cold, hard determination. You turned away from the window, leaving the shifting landscape of London behind. Your gaze, once uncertain, now held a newfound steadfastness, a nascent gleam of unyielding resolve. Though the whispers of fear still lingered like ghosts in the corners of your mind, a faint echo of your former self, you understood, with the clarity of a freshly polished mirror, that the game had irrevocably begun. There was no retreating to the quiet solitude of your books, no escaping the inescapable embrace of your destiny. You were on the stage, the spotlight blindingly bright, and you had no choice but to perform, and to perform exceptionally well. This journey, a turbulent river whose currents you now commanded, demanded nothing less than your absolute best. You were a queen, and from this moment, every breath would be a testament to that title. The air around you, no longer heavy with anxiety, seemed to hum with the quiet hum of burgeoning power.
The very air within Kensington Palace seemed to thicken with a pervasive sense of suffocation. Each breath a shallow struggle against the unseen forces that held you captive. Your childhood, a period typically painted with vibrant hues of laughter and innocent play, was instead a canvas of muted grays, a stark tableau of suffocating control. You grew up within what could only be described as a gilded cage, its bars invisible yet unyielding, where every action, every whispered word was meticulously documented and scrutinized by Sir John Conroy and even your own mother, the Duchess of Kent. The musty odor of unopened rooms, a scent of forgotten dreams, mingled with the stale air that clung stubbornly to the heavy drapes. Feeble shafts of light, like timid intruders, struggled to penetrate the tall, imposing windows, casting long, oppressive shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. All of this combined to create an invisible pressure that bore down on your chest, a crushing weight that often left you gasping for air, a fish out of water. You had no playmates your own age, no confidants to share secrets with, and certainly no freedom to explore the vibrant world beyond the palace walls. Your piano lessons, a monotonous ritual, were nothing more than lifeless keys under your hesitant fingers, producing tuneless melodies that offered no joy, a hollow echo of childhood dreams. Instead, you were forced to memorize dry royal statutes and tedious court etiquette, words like lead weights in your young mind. Only the ancient whispering walls of the palace truly knew the silent tears that often streamed down your face, a private deluge, tracing paths across the pages of the forbidden adventure novels you secretly devoured beneath the covers by candlelight. In those illicit stories, worlds bloomed like exotic flowers, offering you a vast, boundless expanse far grander than anything Conroy would ever permit. This constant surveillance, a watchful hawk never leaving its prey, honed a hidden defiance deep within you, a tiny spark in the vast darkness. The Kensington system, as it was formerly known, was a meticulously crafted prison without visible bars, a labyrinth of rules designed to ensure your absolute dependency. You were forbidden to ascending or descending a staircase without an adult chaperoning your every step, each stair a forbidden territory. Conversing privately with anyone was strictly prohibited, your words like captive birds, always under the watchful eyes of a supervisor, their presence a constant, oppressive hum. Every letter sent to you was intercepted and read, your thoughts laid bare before strangers, and every journey outside the palace walls was meticulously planned and controlled, your movements choreographed like a puppet show. The soft, almost imperceptible footsteps of your assigned supervisor, a constant shadow, always trailed behind you, a relentless reminder of your lack of privacy. The unrelenting sensation of being perpetually observed, like an insect under a magnifying glass, settled deep in your bones. The air often carried the faint, powdery scent of the ladies-in-waiting's cosmetics and the starchy fragrance of their elaborate gowns, a cloying mixture that seemed to contribute to the suffocating atmosphere of your confinement. Indeed, there was no crevice, no tiny fissure for freedom to squeeze through in that meticulously constructed, gilded cage, a relentless tightening of the chains around your budding spirit. Every breath felt carefully measured, every thought a silent rebellion. Then came the cruelest blow, a serpent's fangs tearing at the delicate fabric of your isolated existence. You had found a rare solace, a clandestine friendship with a young maid named Eleanor. She was a wisp of sunshine in your dreary days, often secretly whispering stories of the outside world, tales like forbidden sweets, bringing you tiny wildflowers she'd plucked from secret meadows, or hastily sketched drawings of ordinary life beyond the palace gates. Her presence was a secret garden amidst the palace's rigid formality. One dreary, rain-soaked afternoon, the kind where the sky wept unending tears, you and Eleanor were huddled by a tall window, your voices soft murmurs, exchanging whispers, secrets fluttering like captive butterflies. Suddenly, Conroy appeared as if from thin air, his presence a chilling gust of wind extinguishing your small flame of joy. His eyes, sharp as razor blades, pierced through the dim light as he caught Eleanor in the act of handing you a forbidden book, a forbidden key to a world he sought to deny you. Eleanor. Conroy's voice was a lash of cold steel, laced with an icy threat. What are you doing here, and what is that book? Eleanor's face drained of color, like a canvas washed clean, her usual vibrant spirit crushed by his sudden appearance. She stammered, her words like tangled threads. Sir, I was merely—" Before she could finish, you stepped forward, your small frame trembling but resolute, a tiny shield against his fury. Don't blame Eleanor, Sir John. She was only helping me read. Your voice, though small, carried a surprising current of defiance. Conroy's lips curled into a sneer, a cruel twist that revealed the darkness within him. He dismissed Eleanor with a contemptuous wave of his hand, as if swatting a fly, his eyes fixed solely on you, a predator assessing its prey. Her Royal Highness has no need for such trivialities. Eleanor, you are dismissed, immediately. You are never to set foot in this palace again.
Eleanor's quiet demeanor shattered like fragile glass, her body racked with sobbing that tore at the very air, a sound echoing through the cold, empty hallway like a fresh wound in your tender heart. "No, please, sir." Her pleas were futile whispers against the wind. She was dragged away, her heart-wrenching cries fading into the distance, leaving behind a gaping void in the silence. You stared at Conroy, your young eyes blazing with a hatred that was both nascent and profound, a silent vow of vengeance. The raw, visceral sound of Eleanor's weeping, a chilling symphony of injustice, seemed to fill the vast emptiness of the palace. The bitter taste of your own tears, salty as the unforgiving sea, mixed with the overwhelming surge of helplessness that washed over you, a tidal wave of despair. This betrayal, a festering wound, became a catalyst for change, a hardening of resolve within your gentle spirit. Eleanor's dismissal, a cruel, calculated act, had sown in your heart a deep-seated obsession with injustice and a stark realization of the absolute necessity of power, not for its own sake, but as a shield, a bastion to protect those you cared for, a weapon against the darkness. It was a profound, almost spiritual awakening. You began to pore over history books and political treatises with newfound grim seriousness, devouring knowledge like a starving woman devours bread. You sought out stories of powerful leaders, men and women who had wielded authority like a sharp sword to carve out their own destinies and defend their people. The musty scent of old ink and the crisp feel of parchment from these ancient tomes became the very breath of your burgeoning determination, each page a brick laid in the foundation of your iron will. You saw patterns, connections, threads weaving through centuries of human struggle and triumph. This relentless pursuit of knowledge was your silent rebellion, a secret revolution brewing within the confines of your gilded cage. You discovered that even in the most tightly controlled environments, knowledge was a key, a secret passage to understanding the world, and more importantly, to understanding how to influence it. This intense period of self-education, driven by the pain of Eleanor's loss, solidified your conviction that a monarch's true authority lay not just in lineage, but in intellect, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to justice.
The echoes of Eleanor's sobs, a haunting melody, remained with you, a constant reminder of the vulnerability of the powerless and the moral imperative to use your future power to protect them. This resolve, hardened like steel in a furnace, was no longer a fleeting thought but an intrinsic part of your being. You turned away from the window, the gentle patter of the persistent drizzle outside a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to the storm brewing within you. Though the ghosts of fear still clung to the shadows of your mind, faint whispers of uncertainty, a fierce, unyielding flame of resilience had ignited deep within your soul. You understood, with a clarity as sharp as a newly honed blade, that the passive girl who once longed for freedom was gone. She had been consumed by the fire of circumstance, replaced by a nascent monarch ready to fight. You swore then a silent, solemn vow etched onto the tablets of your heart, that you would never again allow anyone to control you, to dictate your path, a solemn declaration of independence. And beyond that, you vowed to wield your burgeoning power as a shield, a fortress, to protect the vulnerable, to advocate for those who had no voice, a promise whispered into the very fabric of time. This was a profound oath, a secret buried deep beneath the sands of time, destined to guide your reign and define your legacy, a testament to the scars of your past that would ultimately forge the Iron Queen.
The throne, scarcely settled, found itself immediately besieged. Marriage proposals, like relentless ocean waves, crashed against the shores of Britain from every royal court across Europe, each carrying the cloying scent of exotic perfumes and the chilling tang of calculated ambition. You, now the young queen, understood instinctively that marriage was no mere matter of the heart. It was a geopolitical chess game, a high-stakes gamble that would determine the very destiny of an empire. Every elegantly penned letter of courtship, every formal audience with a hopeful prince became a meticulously staged performance, a delicate ballet of power, where you had to maintain an unwavering composure and a sharp, discerning wisdom. The prickling sensation of scrutinizing eyes, like invisible daggers, and the hushed, calculating whispers of your own courtiers as you received these suitors, lurked like hidden threats behind every polite smile and every flattering word. You stood at a precipice, forced to choose not just for your own burgeoning heart, but for the very future of Britain, a nation already simmering with the transformative heat of the Industrial Revolution. The royal selection process was a complex, almost farcical ordeal, a revolving door of hopeful princes parading before you. There was Prince William of Orange, with his boisterous laugh that echoed too loudly in the grand halls, and his eyes that seemed to skim the surface of every conversation, never truly delving into depth. You met dukes from the distant, mysterious courts of Russia, their stiff formal wear masking what felt like an unhealthy arrogance, their words often more about their own lineage than any genuine interest in the future of Britain. Prince George of Cambridge, though an English cousin, lacked the intellectual spark you yearned for, his conversation mostly confined to horses and military drills. Their superficiality was a bitter pill to swallow, their lack of genuine curiosity a stark, painful reflection of the political nature of these unions. These encounters were like tedious plays, each act a monotonous repetition of empty pleasantries and thinly veiled boasts. You often found yourself stifling yawns during extravagant banquets, the clinking of silverware a dull rhythm to the forced laughter that permeated the air. The heavy aroma of rich wines mingled with the stale scent of pipe tobacco clinging to the gentlemen's elaborate suits, a suffocating cloud that made you long for fresh air and honest conversation. A profound sense of disappointment settled over you, a weariness that seeped into your bones, leaving you feeling incredibly lonely.
You were constantly grappling with these shallow displays of pomp, seeking substance where there was often only a hollow echo of ambition. Each meeting a reminder of the vast chasm between your duty and your yearning for genuine connection. You felt like a doll on display, forced to endure these prescripted interactions, your true self hidden away. Then Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha appeared, not with the blare of trumpets or the ostentatious display of the other suitors, but with a quiet dignity that immediately set him apart. He was reserved, his words few, yet his eyes, deep as the ocean, held a profound intelligence that left an indelible mark upon your soul. You found yourself drawn to his unassuming brilliance, his genuine interest in science, art, and philosophy, a striking contrast to the other contenders, whose ambitions seemed to extend no further than personal glory and political gain. It was during a quiet afternoon stroll through the palace gardens, the scent of blooming roses filling the air, that you truly glimpsed the depth of his character. Does your Majesty believe that a great nation should be built upon great ideas and not merely upon war and conquest? Albert's voice was soft, yet infused with deep thought, his gaze fixed on the distant London skyline, where the smoke of industry already began to smudge the horizon. His question was a melody to your ears, a chord striking true within your own intellect. Your eyes, brightening like twin stars, met his. Indeed, Your Highness, I believe profoundly in progress, in the unfolding power of knowledge, but it often feels like a lonely pursuit, surrounded by minds steeped in antiquated notions, unwilling to embrace the future. A faint, gentle smile touched Albert's lips, a fleeting sunrise. Sometimes, Your Majesty, to change a world, all that is required is an iron will and an open heart. His words resonated with you, a quiet declaration of shared purpose. The brief conversation, a delicate dance of intellects, felt like finding a hidden spring in a barren desert. You noticed the faint smell of old books and perhaps a hint of essential oils about him. A clean, subtle aroma so different from the heavy, cloying scent of ambition that permeated the court. It brought with it a profound sense of peace, a gentle balm to your often turbulent spirit. It was as though you had stumbled upon a kindred spirit, a mirror reflecting your own deepest thoughts and aspirations. The immediate sense of relief was like shedding a heavy cloak, replaced by the warmth of genuine connection. In that moment, you knew, with a certainty that transcended mere courtly alliances, that this man, with his soul as deep as the sea, was the one, the missing piece to your grand design.
Your decision to marry Albert, a relatively obscure German prince not particularly renowned for his military prowess or economic influence, ignited a political firestorm. It was a bold gambit, a strategic chess move that shocked the staid establishment. Many ministers and powerful factions within Parliament, their faces etched with skepticism, voiced their vehement opposition. In 1839, you took the unprecedented step of proposing to Albert yourself, an act that had no precedent for a reigning queen, a defiant roar against the suffocating whispers of tradition. The scene in the Privy Council when you announced your intention was thick with unspoken tension, a powder keg waiting for a spark. Lord Palmerston, ever the grand orator, rose, his voice booming with feigned concern, a thunderclap in the hushed chamber. Your Majesty, marrying a German prince with no significant political sway, is this not a most imprudent decision? Especially amidst the great powers of Europe, all vying for dominance like hungry wolves? His words were a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown down at your feet. You stood taller, your back straight as a mast, your eyes like chips of ice fixed on his,
utterly unwavering. "Gentlemen," you began, your voice steady, though perhaps a whisper softer than its usual command, "I choose a man of intellect and virtue, a man who will bring stability and progress to this throne. I trust my judgment. A consort, gentlemen, can be a bridge to peace, not merely a catalyst for war." Your words were a deliberate contrast, a clear line drawn in the sand. You looked directly into the eyes of each council member, your gaze unwavering, like a lighthouse beam cutting through the fog of their disapproval. There was no flinching, no hesitation, no sign of the timid girl they had once known. The atmosphere in the room was so tense it was almost suffocating, a suffocating blanket draped over every person present. The only sounds were the faint rustle of paper as a few members frantically scribbled notes, their pens scratching like nervous insects, and the occasional throat clearing, small explosions of discomfort. The air itself seemed to grow heavy and stale, thick with unspoken objections and the stifling scent of old ambition. Your decision, bold as a breakthrough move on a chessboard, had been made, and no amount of parliamentary grumbling would sway you. You had not only chosen a husband, but you had also declared your independence, your strategic mastery blossoming even in matters of the heart. The winter chill of February 1840 gave way to the warmth of the wedding ceremony. You and Albert were married amidst a cascade of congratulations and the dazzling brilliance of 1,000 lights, each a tiny star in the celebratory firmament. The cheers of the crowds outside Buckingham Palace were a joyful symphony, a wave of affection that washed over you. In that moment, amidst the joyous clamor and the sparkling array of jewels, you felt a rare and profound sense of peace, a quiet harbor after a turbulent journey. Yet, even in that serene bubble, you knew with absolute certainty that this was merely the genesis of a new expedition, a grand odyssey fraught with fresh challenges and untold possibilities. The weight of the crown, once a burden, now felt like a sacred trust shared with the man who stood beside you. A secret long buried beneath the sands of time, detailing the profound internal struggle of a young queen torn between the raw dictates of her heart and the unyielding demands of her royal duty, had finally been laid to rest. The choice was made, the path illuminated, and the journey of the Iron Queen had just begun.
Barely had the echoes of your wedding bells faded, a mere whisper in the grand halls of Buckingham Palace, when a profound realization dawned upon you and Albert. The true power of a queen extended far beyond the laws you signed or the armies you commanded. It resided undeniably in the image you painstakingly constructed in the minds and hearts of your subjects. Especially within an era transforming at a dizzying pace under the relentless pressure of industrial might, a powerful unifying symbol was not just desirable, but absolutely essential to bind the loyalty of a fragmented populace. Like a master sculptor meticulously chipping away at raw stone to reveal a masterpiece, you and Albert embarked on the delicate, monumental task of carving your own public persona. This was the birth of the Iron Queen, a resilient, unyielding figure, a living embodiment of stability, virtue, and relentless progress. The soft rustle of silk taffeta embroidered with glittering threads whispered promises of royalty, while the heavy, reassuring weight of diamonds in your crown felt less like mere adornment and more like a tangible suit of armor, preparing you to face every conceivable challenge the volatile world could throw your way. The antiquated rituals of court, stiff as ancient tapestries, were among the first traditions you and Albert began to subtly yet firmly dismantle.
Albert, with his forward-thinking mind and keen understanding of public sentiment, gently but persistently encouraged you to appear more frequently before the populace. These weren't merely formal state occasions, staged performances for the elite, but rather visits to places that truly mattered to the burgeoning industrial society. You found yourselves inspecting the grimy yet bustling floors of factories, where the cacophony of machinery was a deafening symphony of progress. You walked through the quiet, hopeful corridors of new schools, seeing the bright, eager faces of children who represented the nation's future. And you visited the somber, often overcrowded wards of hospitals, witnessing firsthand the human cost of an era of rapid change. Your presence, once confined behind palace walls, became a tangible force, a living bridge between the monarchy and its people. You and Albert would often walk side by side through the swelling crowds, your hands waving in a friendly, unreserved gesture, shattering the centuries-old barrier of royal aloofness. The roaring cheers of the common people, surging like waves breaking upon a shore, enveloped you in a warmth far more genuine and comforting than any polite applause heard within the gilded chambers of court. It was a chorus of genuine affection, a balm to the soul of a young queen. You could feel the rough, calloused palm of a factory worker lightly brush your gloved hand, a fleeting, almost imperceptible contact that spoke volumes. The faint, clean scent of soap mingled with the sweat of honest labor from the pressing crowds, a raw, authentic perfume of the very people you now led. These direct interactions were small rebellions against rigid protocol, yet they forged an unbreakable bond, turning a distant monarch into a living, breathing symbol for her people. You, with Albert as your shrewd confidant, quickly grasped the immense, burgeoning power of the press and the rapidly evolving art of photography, new weapons in the arsenal of public perception. This wasn't merely about presenting a pleasing image, it was about controlling the narrative, sculpting a public persona that would resonate with the values of a rapidly changing society. Together, you and Albert meticulously vetted every portrait, every photograph. You selected the most flattering angles, the most virtuous expressions, ensuring that each published image conveyed a clear, consistent message, that of a dutiful, morally upright royal family, a beacon of Victorian rectitude. The very development of photography in the 1840s proved to be a revolutionary tool, fundamentally altering how the public perceived their monarchy. No longer were they reliant on romanticized paintings or distant engravings. They could now see you and your growing family in what felt like raw, unvarnished truth. The photographs of you, Albert, and your children, Edward, the Prince of Wales, and the others, were widely disseminated, spreading like wildfire through newspapers and popular prints. This was a radical departure from the guarded, almost secretive nature of previous royal families, a deliberate unmasking. Your family became the quintessential model family of the Victorian era, a living blueprint for domestic bliss and moral rectitude. You could almost smell the pungent chemicals of the darkroom, a strange scientific odor, and feel the rush of excitement, a thrilling jolt, each time you saw your own image or that of your beloved family reproduced with startling fidelity on paper. Controlling your image became like a master composer controlling every single note in a grand symphony, ensuring that the entire composition conveyed the precise message you intended, a powerful harmony of power and virtue.
Beyond mere appearances, you and Albert embarked on a profound mission. to firmly establish and emphasize core moral values, the very bedrock of what would become the Victorian ethos. You championed diligence, virtue, and an unwavering sense of responsibility, values that resonated deeply with the burgeoning middle class, the new engine of Britain's progress. Your image as a devoted wife and an exemplary mother was meticulously cultivated and tirelessly promoted, a stark and deliberate contrast to the often scandalous private lives and perceived moral laxity of previous monarchs and their courts. This domestic purity became a powerful counterpoint to the grimy realities of industrialization, offering a sense of stability in a world in flux. One evening, you stood before a newly commissioned family portrait, a vibrant canvas depicting Albert surrounded by your growing brood, their faces bright with youth and innocence. "I want them to see us as a family, Albert," you murmured, your voice soft, almost a prayer. "A strong, unshakable foundation for this country. It's not just about royalty, it's about righteousness, about moral fortitude." Albert smiled, a gentle warmth in his eyes, and placed a comforting hand on your shoulder. His touch was a soft anchor in the swirling currents of your demanding life. Precisely, Victoria. A powerful throne must have a powerful heart, and that heart begins with our family. His words were a profound affirmation, a shared vision that transcended their personal lives and embraced the very fabric of the nation. You could almost feel the gentle warmth radiating from Albert's hand, a reassuring presence that always calmed your spirit. The sweet, delicate fragrance of fresh flowers from a vase nearby, a quiet breath of beauty, filled the air of the drawing room, adding to the serene, almost idyllic scene. This emphasis on domesticity and moral rectitude was not merely a facade. It was a deep-seated conviction that a nation's strength truly lay in the moral fiber of its people, and that the royal family, like a guiding star, should lead by example. Your shared commitment to these values became a silent pact, a powerful current beneath the surface of your public lives, transforming the monarchy into a moral compass for a rapidly expanding empire, a sturdy foundation from which to lead. By the close of the 1840s, your public image had solidified, hardened like tempered steel. You were no longer merely the queen by birthright. You had become the living embodiment of an entire era, a powerful emblem that captured the aspirations and values of a nation in ascendancy. You were, unequivocally, the Iron Queen, a figure whose unwavering will continued to shape not only yourself, but also the very empire over which you presided. People whispered, in hushed tones of reverence, that every time you made a public appearance, the very atmosphere seemed to shift, a palpable change in the air. It was as if a powerful gust of wind, laden with respect and admiration, swept through the crowds, leaving a trail of unwavering loyalty in its wake. Your reign was becoming synonymous with stability, progress, and unwavering moral fortitude, a golden thread woven into the very fabric of British identity. The foundation of your enduring legacy, a testament to your shrewdness and Albert's unwavering support, had been firmly laid, ready to withstand the coming storms.
The piercing shriek of a train whistle tore through the morning air, a steel predator's cry echoing across the burgeoning landscape of Britain. It was quickly joined by the cacophonous clang of hammers reverberating from colossal steel mills, the twin sounds of industrial might rising, both glorious and terrifying in their raw, unbridled power.
You found yourself face to face with an England transforming at a dizzying pace, a nation shedding its old skin with a speed that left you breathless and often bewildered. New cities had sprung up like mushrooms after a rain, their skylines suddenly bristling with towering smokestacks, each one a dark finger pointing accusingly at the sky. Yet this rapid, relentless growth brought with it thick, choking plumes of soot that perpetually veiled the sun, rivers black with industrial waste that flowed like veins of poison through the land, and the brutal, relentless exploitation of labor, a hidden scar beneath the facade of progress. The pungent, cloying smell of coal dust, the sharp, metallic tang of machine oil, and the hollow, persistent coughs of textile workers, their lungs ravaged by cotton fibers. This was the harsh, undeniable reality that you could no longer ignore. It was a truth that even the thick gilded walls of your opulent palace could not wholly conceal, a haunting whisper carried on every breeze. The very air, heavy and cloying with the stench of smoke and industry, felt chokingly dense each time you opened a window, a constant suffocating reminder of the suffering world outside, a world yearning for your gaze. In 1842, a journey of momentous significance unfolded, a voyage that shattered royal precedent and forever altered your perception of your dominion. You and Albert embarked on your very first train ride, an experience that was nothing short of revolutionary for a reigning monarch, a daring leap into the roaring future. The idea itself was bold as a lightning strike, sending ripples of unease through the more conservative elements of your court. You didn't just travel to the grand cities, the gleaming showcases of Britain's newfound prosperity. With Albert's astute guidance and your own burgeoning curiosity, you specifically requested to visit a coal mine in Lancashire and a textile factory in Manchester, the very heartlands of this industrial transformation. This decision was met with vehement protests from some of your courtiers, their faces etched with concern for your safety and the perceived dignity of the royal image. Their anxieties, whispered like frightened birds, fell on deaf ears, overshadowed by your unyielding determination.
The train itself was a marvel of engineering, a roaring dragon of iron and steam that devoured distance with incredible speed. You felt the dizzying sensation of velocity as the landscape blurred past your window, a frantic, ever-changing painting. The deep, guttural roar of the machinery beneath your feet was both exhilarating and terrifying, a symphony of raw power that vibrated through your very bones. As you disembarked, the thick, cloying scent of coal dust immediately assaulted your senses, a suffocating embrace that tightened around your throat. The persistent, rasping coughs of grimy, malnourished children, their faces smudged with the coal of their misery like dark masks of despair, working in the pitch-black, claustrophobic tunnels of the mines, sent a shockwave of despair straight through you. Their tiny forms, like shadows flickering in the gloom, stood in stark contrast to the grandeur of your presence, a poignant juxtaposition. You reached out, your gloved hand hesitantly touching the cold, damp wall of a factory, feeling the rough, gritty texture that seemed to embody the filth and wretchedness of their ceaseless labor. The sight before you was etched deep into your memory like a branding iron, a permanent scar on your conscience. Gaunt, weary workers, their eyes hollowed with exhaustion, but flickering with a fragile spark of hope as they glimpsed their queen, a rare vision of grace, gazed upon you. You saw the squalid, overcrowded slums, hovels huddled together like frightened sheep, their leaky corrugated iron roofs offering little protection from the elements. Families, packed like sardines into these wretched dwellings, lived in unspeakable destitution, their lives a testament to human endurance amidst such crushing hardship. This grim tableau, a stark reality laid bare beneath the smoke-filled skies, left an indelible mark on your soul, a constant ache that would drive your future actions. The cruel contrast between the gleaming machinery of progress and the grinding poverty of its human engines was a bitter truth, a poison in your royal cup, forcing you to confront the dark underbelly of your thriving empire. Haunted by the ghosts of those weary faces and the acrid smell of poverty that clung to your clothes, you returned to the palace with a fierce, unyielding resolve. The images of the desolate mines and the wretched factory towns had become an inferno in your mind, burning away any lingering complacency that the comforts of royalty might have instilled. You began to champion legislation aimed at improving working conditions, particularly for children and women whose plight had moved you most deeply, a quiet but powerful crusade. This advocacy, however, was met with a wall of fierce opposition from powerful factory owners and a contingent of conservative members of parliament, their voices like a chorus of angry hornets buzzing with self-interest. They argued with cold, unfeeling logic that such reforms would hobble economic progress and undermine Britain's industrial might, a foolish notion in their eyes, prioritizing profit over people.
In a tense meeting, the air thick with unspoken disapproval, you confronted Lord Ashley, a tireless champion for the working class. But your words were also meant for the ears of the opposition, a clear challenge laid bare. Lord Ashley, you stated, your voice firm yet tinged with a profound sense of disillusionment at the callousness of some present. I cannot, in good conscience, accept that children as young as 8 should toil for 12 hours a day in such abhorrent conditions. My conscience, sir, simply does not permit it. Your words were a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown down against the prevailing indifference that had allowed such suffering to fester. An elderly, distinguished member of Parliament, Lord Fitzwilliam, responded with a scornful, dismissive tone, his words dripping with condescension like poisoned honey. But, Your Majesty, this is the very foundation of our industrial might. If we hinder it, Britain will lose its competitive edge. We will fall behind. He spoke as if human lives were mere cogs in a machine, expendable for the greater good of profit. Your eyes, sharp as a surgeon's scalpel, cut through his dismissive facade, seeking the truth beneath the polished words. True national strength, sir, cannot be built upon the blood and shattered bones of innocent children. We must find a better way. We will find a better way. Albert, ever the diplomat, then stepped in, acting as a calming force, a steady hand in the storm. He offered compelling scientific and economic arguments, meticulously demonstrating how improved conditions would, in fact, lead to greater efficiency and long-term prosperity, a logical bridge between morality and profit. The air in the meeting room was thick with the musty smell of old documents and the suffocating tension of clashing ideologies. You could feel a hot flush of indignation rising within you, a furious tide against the sheer injustice that pervaded so much of society. Your conscience, a moral compass guiding your reign, simply could not endure such inhumanity, a burden heavier than any crown. In the quiet solitude of the palace, especially during the late, lonely hours, sleep often proved an elusive companion, a fleeting dream. The haunting images of exhausted workers, their faces pale and drawn, flickered like persistent phantoms behind your closed eyelids, a constant reel of suffering. These were the true faces of your empire, the ones often hidden beneath the grand narratives of progress. You and Albert would often sit by the window, long after the rest of the palace had settled into slumber, gazing out at London, a city perpetually shrouded in a veil of coal smoke, a dark blanket woven from the very fuel of its prosperity. The faint, pervasive scent of coal smoke, carried on the cold wind whistling through the window panes, was a mournful lament that echoed the suffering outside your gilded walls. The chilling sensation of the cold stone floor beneath your bare feet served as a tangible link to the harsh realities faced by so many of your subjects, a quiet act of solidarity in the royal chambers. Only the ancient whispering walls of the palace truly knew the extent of your deep anxieties and restless nights, a queen burdened by the invisible chains of empathy. Though the Factory Act of 1833 had been enacted years prior, its reach was limited and conditions remained appallingly grim, a stark testament to its inadequacy. Your personal observations and subsequent discussions with Albert became a driving force, a powerful catalyst for change that resonated through the halls of power. These quiet conversations, often stretching late into the night, laid the groundwork for significant legislative improvements, culminating in the Factory Act of 1844 and subsequent reforms, which progressively limited working hours for women and children, a lifeline thrown to the desperate. Albert, with his deep understanding of statistics and his pragmatic approach, translated your emotional appeals into sound economic arguments, convincing skeptics that healthier workers were more productive workers. This intellectual partnership, a formidable alliance of heart and mind, allowed you to push through reforms that might otherwise have been stifled by resistance. You felt the silent weight of responsibility pressing down on you, a mantle of duty that extended far beyond ceremonial appearances. Each new act passed, each small improvement in the lives of your people, with a tiny victory, a beacon of hope in the vast darkness of social injustice, a testament to your growing resolve. You had come to a profound realization. Being an Iron Queen was not merely about wielding absolute power and maintaining a flawless public image. It was about confronting the darkest, most unsettling corners of your own society. The glistening facade of industrial prosperity concealed a tapestry of misery woven from the threads of exploitation and suffering, a hidden tragedy playing out in plain sight. The battle for social justice, a monumental undertaking, had only just begun, and you knew, with a heavy heart but an unwavering spirit, that this would be a long, arduous journey, a winding path fraught with obstacles and disappointments, demanding every ounce of your strength and resolve. Yet in that realization, a new dimension of your reign emerged, a profound purpose beyond mere governance. You were not just a ruler, you were becoming a champion for the voiceless, a guardian against injustice, a torchbearer in the shadowed heart of your thriving empire, a queen forged in the fires of compassion. This was a secret buried deep beneath the sands of time, the quiet resolve of a monarch who understood that true greatness lay in uplifting all her people, not just the privileged few.
As you and Albert meticulously toiled to refine the royal image and alleviate the most glaring societal scars of the industrial age, a simmering wave of discontent below the surface of British society had quietly yet relentlessly gathered strength. It swelled, a monstrous tide of popular frustration, until it finally erupted into a full-blown political tempest known as Chartism. From the foul, labyrinthine alleys of the slums, where human dignity was often just a fading memory, and the sooty, clamorous depths of the factories, where life was a ceaseless grind, the voices of the common people began to rise. They demanded political and social rights, their collective cry a guttural roar that shook the very foundations of the kingdom. The acrid smell of the crowd's raw anger, thick and potent as a coming storm, mingled with the deafening chants of votes for all that echoed relentlessly from the grimy streets of London, like a thunderclap announcing the imminent arrival of a colossal storm upon your monarchy. You could feel the unsettling tremor not just of the very ground beneath your regal feet, but also the seismic shift of cherished age-old traditions being rattled to their core. This was the moment your Iron Queen persona, painstakingly forged, faced a war without bullets or cannons, but with the fiery rhetoric and burning indignation of your very own subjects, a challenge more profound than any foreign invasion. The greatest political crisis of your early reign, a formidable shadow cast across your burgeoning years as queen, came to a terrifying head in 1848. Europe itself was a powder keg, exploding with revolutions that sent shock waves across the continent, igniting the flames of rebellion in France, Germany, and Austria. This international turmoil served as a powerful accelerant to the already simmering discontent within Britain. The Chartists, emboldened by the revolutionary fervor sweeping across the Channel, planned a colossal demonstration at Kennington Common in London, a show of force designed to be unprecedented in its scale. Their ambition was clear: to present their third national petition, a document demanding universal suffrage and other fundamental political rights, directly to Parliament. The entire city of London, from the lowliest pauper to the wealthiest lord, seemed to hold its breath, a collective gasp of apprehension, anticipating what might unfold. A palpable wave of fear and anxiety, cold as a winter fog, crept through the hallowed halls of Buckingham Palace, its grandeur feeling suddenly fragile. You received intelligence reports detailing the sheer number of expected participants, figures that swelled like an approaching army, speaking of hundreds of thousands. These documents were filled with accounts of fiery, revolutionary speeches delivered in smoke-filled public houses and open fields, words like kindling, igniting passions. Your generals, their faces grim and set, gravely recommended that you, the very symbol of the nation, be immediately evacuated from London to ensure your safety. Their voices, heavy with concern, painted vivid pictures of potential chaos, a nightmare scenario. You watched your secretary's pen scratching nervously across the parchment as he transcribed the latest grim updates, each stroke a testament to the escalating tension. You gazed out of your window, the usually bustling streets now feeling strangely quiet, like a coiled spring, as if the entire city was indeed simmering with a volatile, unseen energy, waiting for the inevitable explosion. The anxiety in your chest, a suffocating presence, felt like a rope tightening around your heart, squeezing the very breath from your lungs. The morning of the planned Chartist demonstration, April 10, 1848, was shrouded in a tense, almost unbearable silence within the palace. An emergency meeting had been convened, bringing together your most trusted advisors, Prime Minister Lord John Russell, his face etched with worry, and the formidable Duke of Wellington, the legendary Iron Duke, now in command of London's military defenses. The air in the cabinet room was thick with unspoken fears, a tangible weight pressing down on every soul present. Wellington, his presence still as commanding as an ancient oak, laid out his meticulously detailed defense plan. It involved the strategic deployment of thousands of regular troops, bolstered by an even larger force of civilian special constables, a human wall against the anticipated tide of protesters. Lord Russell, his voice tight with barely concealed alarm, began, "Your Majesty, the situation is grave. We anticipate hundreds of thousands of individuals. We must prepare for the very worst. Your evacuation from London, Your Majesty, is not merely advisable, it is, I believe, absolutely essential for the safety of the Crown." His words were a desperate plea, a mirror reflecting the city's collective terror. The Duke of Wellington, his voice firm and unyielding like aged granite, then added, "We have positioned our forces strategically, Your Majesty. There is no need for you to worry about your personal safety, but remaining in the city would be an unnecessary risk to the very symbol of the monarchy." His gaze,
though respectful, carried the unmistakable weight of his military judgment, a solemn warning.
You rose from your chair, your posture straight and unyielding as a newly forged sword. Your eyes, like twin beacons, swept across each man in the room, holding their gaze, allowing no trace of the fear you still felt to surface. Your voice, though perhaps a whisper softer than its usual command, resonated with an unmistakable power that commanded instant silence. No, I will not leave. Each word was a declaration, a stake driven into the ground. A queen does not abandon her subjects when they need her most, when they are at their most vulnerable. If they have a reason to complain, a legitimate grievance, then I must be here to listen. This is no time for flight, gentlemen. This is the moment to demonstrate the power of presence. Your defiant stand, a direct challenge to conventional wisdom, sent a shockwave through the room. The initial silence, a vacuum of surprise, was absolute. Albert, ever your steadfast support, quietly stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on your shoulder, a gesture of silent, powerful affirmation that spoke volumes. The faint scent of cigar smoke from Wellington's pipe, usually a comforting aroma, now felt heavy in the tense air. The slight creak of a chair as one of the privy councillors shifted, caught off guard by your resolve, was a tiny explosion in the profound stillness. You could feel the hot blood surge through your veins, a powerful current of conviction that transformed your fear into unwavering courage. The day of the great Chartist demonstration, April 10, 1848, unfolded in a manner that defied the anxieties that had gripped the nation. Ultimately, the anticipated surge of hundreds of thousands of protesters did not fully materialize as expected. This was due in part to a torrential downpour that began shortly before the scheduled march, a divine intervention that dampened spirits and thinned the ranks. More significantly, the government's meticulous preparation, with Wellington's forces conspicuously yet discreetly deployed, sent a clear message of controlled strength. Furthermore, the leadership of the Chartist movement itself proved unable to fully control the vast, diverse crowd, their authority crumbling under the pressure. The petition, ultimately signed by far fewer individuals than claimed and found to contain many fraudulent signatures, was presented to the House of Commons, but was decisively rejected. Although the demonstration did not erupt into widespread rioting and revolution that many had feared, the events of April 10, 1848 still served as a powerful warning, a piercing alarm bell for both the monarchy and the government. It was a stark, undeniable revelation of the deep-seated discontent simmering within the working classes, a crack in the gleaming facade of Victorian prosperity. You breathed a deep, shaky sigh of relief when the reports confirmed the peaceful outcome, a collective exhalation from your closest confidants. The air in the palace, no longer heavy with dread, seemed to acquire a fresh, clean scent after days of suffocating tension, a delicate perfume of reprieve. This pivotal moment, despite its anticlimactic ending, became a critical lesson in the delicate balance of power, demonstrating that while outright rebellion might be averted, the force of public opinion could not be dismissed. The Chartist movement, though it faded in its immediate revolutionary impact, left an indelible mark on the political landscape and on your own understanding of governance. You began to realize that industrial might, while ushering in unprecedented prosperity and technological advancement, also created deep, painful fissures within society. The vast chasm between the opulent lives of the wealthy and the squalid existence of the working poor was a gaping wound that demanded attention, a moral stain on the nation's conscience. Your courageous decision not to leave London during the crisis had, against the advice of many, significantly strengthened the public's trust and confidence in your reign. It was a masterstroke of leadership, a testament to your unwavering commitment. Yet it also revealed a profound truth, that real power did not reside solely in the hands of a monarch, no matter how absolute her authority might appear. It was also, fundamentally, woven into the collective voice of the masses, a murmuring giant that, once roused, could shake the very foundations of an empire. This was a secret buried deep beneath the sands of time, the powerful, enduring lesson of burgeoning social unrest that became an invaluable, albeit costly, education for your burgeoning reign. It was a realization that would continue to shake your policies and define your legacy, ensuring that the Iron Queen was not just a symbol of strength, but also a figure of empathy and evolving understanding.
Amidst the relentless churn of state affairs, a dizzying dance of protocols and policies, and the insidious whispers of court intrigue that often felt like serpents coiling around the throne, you, Victoria, had miraculously unearthed a love so profound it felt like a miracle, a connection as deep and true as the ocean itself with Albert, your beloved prince consort. He was not merely your husband, a political alliance forged from necessity. He was your confidant, a steadfast anchor in the stormy seas of monarchy, your most trusted advisor, his wisdom a guiding star in the often treacherous firmament of power. The sweet, delicate perfume of roses from the royal gardens at Osborne House, a fragrant promise of peace, mingled with the joyful, melodious chirping of birds on crisp, early mornings when you two walked hand in hand, two souls entwined. The reassuring warmth of Albert's hand tightly clasping yours during your private strolls, these were the sacred moments when you shed the heavy mantle of sovereignty and simply existed as a woman, as Victoria, not the Iron Queen or a national symbol. Your spirited debates about politics, science, and art, or even the shared delight in a simple jest, allowed you to be your truest self, to be Victoria, unburdened by the crushing expectations of your crown. It was widely whispered that your love, a beacon of unwavering devotion, formed the very bedrock of the throne, a shining testament that power could indeed coexist with profound happiness. The years that followed your marriage to Albert unfolded into a period of extraordinary personal happiness and unparalleled collaboration, a golden age for the monarchy. You and Albert, a harmonious symphony of two souls, meticulously cultivated a family life that became a moral exemplar for the entire nation. The joyful peals of children's laughter, like church bells chiming on a bright Sunday, echoed through the grand, otherwise often silent corridors of the palace, a vibrant testament to the 9 lives you had brought into the world. The sweet, comforting scent of warm milk and freshly baked pastries wafted from the palace kitchens, a homely aroma that filled the expansive rooms with a sense of domestic bliss. These were moments of profound contentment, punctuated by the quiet serenity of Albert reading to you by the warm, crackling hearth, his voice a soothing balm after the day's relentless demands. He became not just a partner in life, but a partner in governance, his intellect and vision driving a sweeping modernization of both the royal household and the very fabric of the nation. From the rigorous reorganization of the army to the groundbreaking social reforms that sought to alleviate the plight of the working class, and his relentless championing of science and technology, Albert's influence was pervasive, a guiding hand shaping the future. His most enduring legacy, the Great Exhibition of 1851, was a glittering triumph, a colossal cathedral of glass and iron, celebrating British innovation and global unity, a testament to his foresight and your unwavering support. He was the quiet architect behind the throne, your indispensable strength, and together you were shaping an empire and a family, two inseparable threads in the grand tapestry of the age. Yet even amidst this period of profound joy and unparalleled success, a faint, insidious shadow began to creep into the sunlight of your life. Gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, Albert's robust health began to wane, like a vibrant flame flickering in a subtle breeze. He remained a tireless worker, his dedication to the crown and to his various projects unyielding as an ancient oak, pushing himself to the very limits of endurance. But the subtle signs of fatigue grew more pronounced, deepening lines etched around his eyes, and a persistent hacking cough became an increasingly familiar and increasingly alarming sound in the quiet corridors of the palace. You, ever attentive to his well-being, observed these changes with growing trepidation, a knot of worry tightening in your heart. You voiced your concerns, your questions imbued with an unspoken fear. But he would always offer reassurance, his voice a calming balm, promising you he was fine, merely overworked. "It's nothing, my dear Victoria," he would say, "a comforting lie, just the usual strain." The anxiety that gripped your heart, a relentless icy hand, tightened each time you witnessed him succumb to a coughing fit, his body shaking with the effort. Slowly, imperceptibly, the medicinal scent of various tonics and remedies began to permeate the air of his study, a subtle, bitter perfume that foreshadowed the tragedy to come. His health, like a dwindling candle, was burning down, the flame flickering, casting long, ominous shadows. The concern, a persistent phantom, clung to your days and nights, making every moment of his weakness a fresh wound in your heart. Then came the greatest tragedy of your life, a thunderbolt from a clear sky that shattered your world into a million irreparable pieces. The fateful day, December 14th, 1861, remains forever etched into the memory of each one of your days, a date synonymous with unendurable pain. Albert, your strength, your guiding light, succumbed to what was later identified as typhoid fever, a cruel, merciless illness that stole him from you with terrifying swiftness. The deep, mournful tolling of church bells, a funereal dirge echoing through the heavy, cold winter air, no longer carried the joyous tidings of victories or celebrations, but rather the agonized cries of a nation in mourning, a universal lament for a love so grand, so vital, so utterly irreplaceable. You collapsed, utterly undone, your very soul ripped apart by a grief so profound it felt like a physical tearing. The world, once vibrant and full of purpose, had dimmed to a monochrome existence, devoid of all color and light. You clung to his cold, lifeless body, unwilling, unable to release him, your fingers desperate anchors against the relentless current of despair. The faint, lingering smell of medicine and the chilling, stark coldness of Albert's skin imprinted themselves on your very being, a sensory torture that promised a wound that would never truly heal.
In those first agonizing moments, the world narrowed to the confines of your despair. You whispered, your voice a ragged, broken sound, hot tears streaming down your face, wetting his lifeless uniform. No, no, it cannot be. You cannot leave me. You cannot leave me to bear all this, all alone. The words were a desperate, unheard plea, a fragment of a heart that had shattered into countless pieces. The unbearable agony of his absence, a gaping void, was a physical torment that tore at the very fabric of your soul, leaving you breathless and utterly lost. The once vibrant chambers of Windsor Castle became a mausoleum of memories, each corner holding the echo of his laughter, his wisdom, his presence, a relentless torment. The aftermath of Albert's death plunged you into a period of profound and prolonged grief, a dark abyss from which you seemed unable or unwilling to emerge. You withdrew almost entirely from public life, retreating into the shadows like a wounded animal, consumed by your sorrow. For decades you lived in perpetual mourning, clad exclusively in somber black attire, a living monument to your loss. You earned the poignant, yet often critical moniker of the Widow of Windsor, a title that spoke both of your devotion and your profound isolation. You steadfastly refused to attend social events, once a crucial part of royal duty, and significantly curtailed your participation in political gatherings and ceremonies. This prolonged seclusion, a self-imposed exile, drew considerable controversy and even harsh criticism from certain segments of the public and the political establishment. Many argued that you were neglecting your duties, abandoning the ship of state at a time when leadership was most crucial, a queen lost to her sorrow. The very atmosphere within the palace became chillingly cold, a tomb of silence where joy dared not tread. Your own footsteps, solitary echoes in the vast, empty corridors, emphasized the overwhelming sense of loneliness that now defined your existence. The faint, unyielding smell of the heavy black crepe fabric of your mourning attire clung to you, a constant reminder of your devastating loss, a shroud of grief that never left your side. Whispers of discontent grew outside the palace walls, a low hum of disapproval, as the public, once adoring, began to question your continued absence, a growing rift between monarch and people. Yet, even in the depths of your all-consuming grief, a flicker of the Iron Queen's resolve remained, a stubborn ember refusing to die. Though your heart was shattered beyond repair, you never entirely abandoned your duties. The piles of important state papers, towering monuments to responsibility, still arrived on your desk daily, and you diligently, if reluctantly, attended to them. You maintained a constant, though largely written correspondence with your ministers, a lifeline to the affairs of state. The immense pain, a constant companion, did not weaken your will. Rather, it subtly transformed you. It forged you into an Iron Queen who was not only majestic and formidable, but also deeply empathetic, possessing a profound personal understanding of life's inherent fragility. The loss of Albert, a wound that would never truly heal, deepened your compassion for the suffering of others, sharpening your resolve to act for the greater good of your people. This profound sorrow, a secret buried deep beneath the sands of time, became a poignant reminder of the true cost of power
and the unfathomable price of love. A lesson forever etched onto the very soul of the monarch. This was not the end of your story, but the beginning of a new, more somber, but perhaps even more resilient chapter of your reign.
Even as your heart remained a raw, open wound, still bleeding from the crushing loss of Albert, the relentless hum of steam engines from Britain's burgeoning factories and the cacophonous clang of ships arriving and departing from London's sprawling docks never ceased their insistent symphony. These were the unyielding pulse beats of an empire that continued its relentless expansion, a powerful, unstoppable force refusing to acknowledge your personal grief. Under your lengthy reign, the British Empire had unfurled its reach like a colossal octopus, its countless tentacles grasping firm roots in every continent across the globe, driven by the insatiable engine of industrial might. The exotic, unfamiliar sense of spices wafting from distant India, the damp, earthy smell of rain-soaked soil from the heart of Africa, and the faint, triumphant cheers of British soldiers echoed from far-flung lands, all coalesced into the very breath of an empire upon which the sun truly never set. You, the grieving queen, were the silent orchestrator behind critical decisions that irrevocably shaped the destinies of millions, from the awe-inspiring snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas to the vast, scorching expanse of the African deserts, a queen whose shadow stretched across continents. The pinnacle of this imperial ambition arrived in 1876, a year that etched itself into the annals of history with a title that resonated with the unfathomable breadth of British dominion. It was then that you were formally proclaimed Empress of India, a golden crown added to your already heavy regalia, marking not just a personal elevation, but a significant new epoch for the power and expansion of the British Empire. This moment cemented the era as the very zenith of British colonialism, a high tide mark of global influence. Despite your deep personal sorrow, you embraced this role with the solemn gravity it demanded, understanding its monumental implications. Your days became filled with exhaustive meetings with your colonial advisors, their voices often dry as parchment as they detailed the immense, often untapped resources of these distant lands and the complex, myriad challenges of their governance. You listened intently, absorbing facts and figures about everything from vast diamond mines in South Africa to the sprawling tea plantations of Ceylon, each report a tiny window into an exotic, distant world. You devoted yourself to understanding this immense new jewel in your crown. You famously spent time learning Hindustani, the lingua franca of much of India. It was said that, though you never truly mastered the language, your efforts were persistent, a diligent student poring over her lessons, a testament to your genuine interest, a bridge built with effort. You devoured books on Indian history, its vibrant cultures and its complex social structures, displaying a unique and profound personal interest in what many in Britain simply viewed as the shining jewel of the empire, a mere resource to be exploited. The tangible weight of enormous, meticulously drawn maps spread across your mahogany basque, vast colored tapestries of conquest, was a constant reminder of the empire's staggering scale. The faint, pervasive scent of ink and aged paper from the endless colonial reports filled your study, a potent aroma of distant lands and unseen lives. You heard the hushed, excited whispers of your advisors speaking of daring expeditions into uncharted territories, of new markets to be opened, of indigenous populations to be civilized, a chorus of imperial ambition that seemed to echo through the very walls of the palace. This deep personal engagement, while often rooted in a paternalistic view, was crucial to your reign, a visible dedication that endeared you to some and solidified your image as the empress of an unparalleled global force. Yet with this dizzying expansion came a dissonant chorus of dissent, a rising tide of defiance from the very lands under imperial sway. As the empire stretched its reach like grasping fingers across the globe, so too did the seeds of rebellion begin to germinate and bloom into violent uprisings. The specter of the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 in India, a traumatic scar on the imperial psyche, had revealed the inherent dangers of rule by force. Now new conflicts erupted. The brutal Anglo-Zulu War, a clash of spears and rifles in the African veld, and continuous smaller-scale rebellions across India, each a festering wound on the empire's vast body. Reports of escalating casualties, of British soldiers falling in distant fields, and of the brutal, often indiscriminate suppression of indigenous populations flooded into the palace, each telegram a fresh cut, carrying the ghostly scent of blood and gunpowder, a chilling perfume of war. One particularly somber evening, the palace cloaked in its usual quiet grandeur, an urgent telegram arrived, its terse words like a lightning strike across the stillness. It detailed a bloody uprising in a remote corner of the empire, a fiery inferno consuming lives both British and native. You looked at the large, meticulously detailed world map that hung in your study, a constant companion. The vast swaths of land marked in vibrant imperial red, once symbols of dominion and pride, now seemed to flicker with imagined flames, burning with the unrest of millions. The weight of such news was a crushing burden, a heavy shroud draped over your already grieving shoulders.
In a tense, candlelit meeting, you confronted your formidable Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, his theatrical flair barely masking the gravity of the situation. "Mr. Disraeli," you began, your voice grave, tinged with a deep, simmering concern that transcended mere political calculation. "What is transpiring in that distant land is more than mere instability. It is a cry for help, a desperate wail from the subjugated. We must find a way to uphold order, yes, but we must also, I implore you, consider their suffering. Is there no other path than brute force?" Disraeli, a master of rhetoric, his voice resonating with an unshakable confidence that bordered on arrogance, responded, "Your Majesty, the empire demands strength to maintain order. Sometimes the price of greatness is indeed blood and tears. We shall quell this fire of rebellion, and we shall consolidate our power, firmer than ever before." His words were a bitter draught, a stark reminder of the ruthless pragmatism that often underpinned imperial rule. You could almost smell the faint, acrid scent of gunpowder in your imagination, a phantom odor of distant battlefields, and feel the hot, churning sensation of anxiety mixed with the immense isolating weight of your responsibility for so many lives. The relentless expansion of empire and the constant suppression of resistance forced you to grapple with profound, complex moral questions, a tangled knot in your conscience. Could the supposed civilizing mission, the promise of bringing British laws, education, and technology to these backward lands, truly justify the brutal oppression and the immense human cost it demanded? This was a philosophical sword with two sharp edges, cutting at both the conqueror and the conquered. You were known, privately, to express deep sorrow over the escalating casualties, not just of your brave soldiers, but also the countless innocent civilians caught in the maelstrom of colonial wars. You felt the silent burden of the lives lost, a heavy tally that weighed on your soul, a queen haunted by the shadows of empire. There were nights when sleep, already elusive after Albert's death, seemed to abandon you entirely. You would lie awake, the cold stone walls of the palace a silent witness, wrestling with the immense responsibility that bore down upon you.
Only the ancient whispering walls of the palace knew the hours you spent in solitary contemplation, wrestling with the ethical quandaries of an empire built on both progress and coercion, a moral labyrinth with no easy answers. The power you wielded, vast and unprecedented, was truly a double-edged sword. It allowed Britain to shape the world, but it also cut deep into the lives of millions, leaving indelible scars. You recognized that true leadership, especially of an empire so immense and diverse, demanded more than just issuing decrees. It required a profound, often painful reckoning with its moral implications. As the Victorian age progressed, you came to a sobering yet clear realization. Industrial might had indeed bestowed upon Britain an unparalleled power, allowing it to scope the global landscape in its image. Yet this very power came with an unfathomable, colossal burden, a cross heavier than any crown. Your position as an Iron Queen was no longer merely a symbol of regal majesty and unwavering authority. It was also the unyielding shoulders that bore the staggering responsibility for the destinies of millions of souls across the globe. You were the silent guardian of an empire in which a secret, long buried deep beneath the sands of time, chronicling the untold suffering of its colonial subjects, still lingered, a somber reminder of the immense, often brutal price of global dominance. This realization cemented your resolve, even in perpetual mourning, to guide your vast empire with a deeper, more profound understanding of the human cost of its glory.
The twilight years of your extraordinary reign descended, not with the gentle hush of fading daylight, but with a crescendo of mechanical wonders that utterly reshaped the world, transforming the quaint, familiar kingdom you had inherited into an unrecognizable titan of industry and innovation. The faint, startling horn of horseless carriages now began to pierce the once dominant clatter of hoofs on London's bustling cobblestone streets, a new melody in the city's symphony. Blazing electric lights, brilliant as captured stars, started to supplant the flickering gaslit glow that had long cast its dim shadows, illuminating the night with an intensity previously unimaginable. This was the golden age of invention, a period of unfettered, exhilarating progress, where industrial might roared louder than ever before, a tireless beast of burden and creation, relentlessly reshaping every facet of daily life, from the grandest factories to the most intimate domestic spaces. The sharp metallic tang of new machine oil, a potent elixir of progress, mingled with the scorching scent of hot steel emanating from colossal factories, now transformed from mere symbols of exploitation into the very breath of a new era, a testament to humanity's audacious achievements. You, the venerable queen, had witnessed a transformation so profound it bordered on the miraculous, watching your nation evolve from a largely agrarian backwater into the undisputed industrial, cultural, and scientific superpower of the world, a gleaming colossus bestriding the globe. The final decades of your reign unfolded as a dazzling era of scientific marvels and technological breakthroughs, a ceaseless torrent of invention that poured forth from the ingenious minds of British and international innovators. New discoveries were born ceaselessly, like shooting stars streaking across the vast knowledge of knowledge itself, each one blazing a trail towards an unimaginable future. You were no stranger to these wonders, having championed progress for decades, but the speed of change in these later years was truly breathtaking.
You and your children, particularly Edward, the Prince of Wales, a figure of modern sensibilities, were regularly introduced to the very latest technological advancements, often in private demonstrations held within the palace itself, a sacred temple of progress. You recalled the precise moment you first experienced the miracle of the telephone, a slender device of brass and wires. The unseen current running through the line buzzed with an almost mystical energy, and then, from miles away, you heard a voice, faint but undeniably clear, speaking to you through the very air, a ghostly whisper from afar. It was a sensation both exhilarating and unsettling, a glimpse into a future where distance seemed to vanish. The rhythmic clatter and hiss of the telegraph machine became a constant presence, a tireless drumbeat of urgent news as vital dispatches, diplomatic secrets, and imperial commands pulsed across continents, binding your vast empire with invisible threads of information. The sharp, clean scent of ozone, a curious aroma of electricity, often lingered after demonstrations of new electrical devices, a tangible smell of the dawning electric age. The automobile, initially a noisy, unreliable curiosity, began to rumble into existence on city streets, a mechanical beast of burden, promising a future of unprecedented mobility. The very concept of electricity, once a laboratory curiosity, began to illuminate cities, turning night into day, and power factories with a clean, invisible force, a silent revolution. You understood with a profound clarity that these weren't mere gadgets. They were the building blocks of a new world, the sinews of modern life, and Britain, under your watchful eye, was at the very forefront of this thrilling, relentless march forward. Despite the profound and enduring grief that had caused your withdrawal from much of public life, transforming you into the somber widow of Windsor, your intellect remained sharp, your curiosity undiminished. You, the sovereign, continued to cultivate a deep, abiding interest in the relentless march of science, engineering, and the arts, remaining their steadfast patron and protector. Your private apartments, once filled with the echoes of Albert's voice, now often hosted small, intimate exhibitions, private salons of innovation, where brilliant inventors and visionary scientists were invited to present their latest discoveries directly to you. You listened rapt as they explained the intricacies of new engines, the principles behind wireless communication, or the potential of new medical breakthroughs. One particular afternoon, a young, earnest scientist named Dr. Alastair Finch, his face alight with the fiery passion of discovery, stood before you, presenting a complex model of a new electrical generator. You leaned forward slightly, your posture perhaps a little weary with age, but your eyes, sharp as a falcon's, glittered with genuine interest. Your voice, though softer than in your younger days, still carried the unmistakable weight of royal authority, mixed with profound curiosity. "Dr. Finch," you began, "your invention, if truly realized, will undoubtedly alter the very fabric of how we perceive the world. But are you certain, truly certain, that it will bring benefit to all of my people, and not merely swell the coffers of the wealthy, a gilded cage for the privileged?" Your question, a moral challenge, hung in the air, reflecting your constant preoccupation with the social ramifications of progress. Dr. Finch, his initial nervousness fading under the warmth of your genuine inquiry, his eyes radiant with the fervent light of conviction, responded with unwavering passion. "Your Majesty,
I believe with every fiber of my being that the light of knowledge will illuminate every hidden corner, every dark alley of society. Our sacred duty as innovators is to ensure that this illumination, this newfound power, is harnessed for the greatest good of all, for the uplifting of humanity. You nodded slowly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile gracing your lips like a rare sunrise. Remember those words, Dr. Finch. The power of science is immense, a force of nature unleashed, but the responsibility that accompanies it is no less significant, a burden heavier than any crown. Your response was a clear articulation of your enduring belief that progress without a moral compass could become a destructive force. This dialogue, a quiet exchange of profound ideas, epitomized your continued engagement with the intellectual currents of your age, proving that your wisdom had only deepened with time and sorrow. As the grand narrative of your reign approached its inevitable conclusion, you found yourself reflecting upon the monumental legacy that you, along with your beloved Albert, had meticulously constructed, brick by painstaking brick, over the course of more than 60 years. It was a legacy vast and multifaceted, a towering edifice of achievement that stretched across the globe. You had, with Albert's insightful guidance, painstakingly redefined the very style of the monarchy, transforming it from a distant, often scandalous institution into a moral bedrock for the nation, a beacon of domestic virtue. You had championed sweeping social reforms, from the crucial public health acts that brought sanitation and clean water to crowded cities, transforming the lives of millions, to the various factory acts aimed at curbing the worst excesses of industrial exploitation, a quiet revolution from above.
Under your stewardship, Britain had not merely survived the tumultuous currents of the 19th century. It had flourished, transforming from a relatively fragmented agrarian nation into the undisputed industrial powerhouse of the world, a roaring engine of progress. Its vast empire, a tapestry woven from 1,000 cultures and lands, stood as a testament to its formidable power and influence, a global colossus. You felt the heavy, almost crushing weight of age in your bones, a constant reminder of the relentless march of time. Yet this was tempered by a profound sense of quiet satisfaction, a gentle lightness in your heart as you contemplated the immense achievements that had transpired under your rule. The very air in your private apartments seemed to carry the faint, comforting scent of old memories, stirred by the countless artifacts and portraits that adorned the royal galleries, silent witnesses to an extraordinary life. It was whispered throughout the land, and indeed across the world, that every single brick of London, every cog in every factory, every mile of rail track bore the indelible mark of your reign, a testament to your unwavering spirit. It was said with universal reverence that you had left behind a magnificent legacy, an entire epoch that would forever bear your name, the Victorian era. A golden age defined by your unparalleled power, your unwavering resolve, and your profound, if often private, compassion. Though you stood on the very precipice of life's final journey, your will remained as unyielding as tempered steel, a core of pure defiance that nothing, not even the relentless march of time or the crushing weight of personal sorrow, could ever truly break. Your very presence, even when unseen, merely conveyed through formal photographs disseminated across the empire, or through the terse official pronouncements in the daily news, remained an unshakable pillar of stability for the entire vast dominion. You were not just a queen, you were an institution, a living monument to an era. The journey of your reign, a grand odyssey of triumph and tragedy, innovation and conflict, was nearing its end, but the world you had helped to forge and the legacy you had bequeathed would continue to shape the destiny of millions long after your passing. The Iron Queen, forged in the crucible of duty and loss, had indeed crafted a new world, leaving behind a timeless imprint.
At long last, even the Iron Queen, whose will had been forged in the crucible of duty and loss, was compelled to confront the unyielding, inevitable tide of fate. The solemn, relentless ticking of the grandfather clock in your private chambers at Osborne House, perched majestically on the Isle of Wight, felt like a somber drumbeat, each passing second a final, hushed farewell to a truly magnificent era. The faint, bitter scent of medicines, a pervasive aroma of mortality, clung to the air, clashing starkly with the stubborn, unyielding spirit that still flickered within your increasingly fragile body. You had lived an extraordinary life, a sweeping saga spanning more than 6 decades, witnessing and actively shaping a monumental period of transformation that few could have ever conceived. Now, frail but resolute, you lay there, listening to the haunting whisper of the wind as it slipped through the window panes, a ghostly murmur of history itself, sighing its final secrets into the twilight of your reign. The final hours of your earthly journey were marked by a stubborn, unwavering resolve, a testament to the unyielding spirit that had defined your life. Despite the insistent pleas of your devoted physicians and concerned children, you steadfastly refused to lie down fully in your bed. Instead, with a warrior's last defiance, you insisted on being propped up, wanting to remain upright, your gaze fixed upon the boundless expanse of the sea from your window. It was as if you, a veteran commander on her final battlefield, refused to yield, desiring to survey your vast empire, the product of your tireless dedication, until your very last breath. Your surviving children, Edward VII, now the aging Prince of Wales, his face a mask of grief; Princess Helena, ever nurturing; Princess Louise, artistic and sensitive; and Prince Arthur, stoic and military, along with many of your numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren, gathered in silent vigil around your bedside. The air in the room, thick with unspoken farewells, was heavy with sorrow, but equally permeated by an overwhelming aura of profound respect for the woman who had guided their nation for so long. You felt the cold tendrils of passing life slowly, inexorably envelop your body, an icy embrace that crept from your extremities inwards, yet your eyes, though clouded with age, retained their remarkable sharpness, gazing fixedly towards the distant horizon, a silent farewell to a world you had shaped. The muffled sobs of your closest kin, a quiet chorus of unbearable grief, mingled with the gentle, rhythmic sigh of ocean waves breaking softly on the distant shore, a mournful, natural symphony to mark your passing. The sweet, delicate fragrance of fresh flowers, a bittersweet perfume of beauty and decay, arranged in countless bouquets around your bed, added to the poignant atmosphere, each bloom a silent tear. This was not merely the end of a life, it was the closing of a magnificent chapter in British and world history, a final quiet act in a truly epic drama. The world outside, unknowingly, awaited the moment its guiding star would finally dim. Then, on the fateful day of January 22, 1901, the inevitable arrived. After a monumental reign of 63 years and 7 months, a period of unprecedented transformation and expansion, Queen Victoria breathed her last. Her passing marked the end of an era, a transition into a new century and a new world. For generations, she had been the longest reigning monarch in British history, a record that stood like a towering obelisk until her great-great-granddaughter, Queen Elizabeth II, eventually surpassed it. The exact moment you took your final breath, a profound, almost supernatural silence descended upon the crowded room, a hush that swallowed all sound, as if the very air held its breath in reverence. Then the collective grief that had been held in check finally burst forth, a wave of unrestrained sobs and cries that filled the hallowed space, a symphony of despair. Beyond the confines of Osborne House, across the bustling streets of London and throughout the farthest reaches of your vast empire, a universal signal of mourning unfurled. Flags on public buildings, on ships in distant ports, and in remote colonial outposts were lowered to half-mast, a silent, universal bow of respect for the departed sovereign. You felt, perhaps, a final, ethereal, cold current, like a whisper of eternity, as your spirit gently, peacefully left its aged vessel, rising above the earthly confines that had held it for so long. In the distance, the solemn, haunting strains of funeral trumpets began to drift, a mournful fanfare announcing your departure to a world that was now irrevocably changed. Your passing left a vast, echoing emptiness in history, a gaping void that no single individual could ever hope to fill, only to build upon. The Queen, who had been a symbol for generations, was now gone, leaving behind a legacy as enduring as the very stones of her castles. The legacy you left behind was a monumental tapestry, a vibrant, enduring masterpiece woven from the threads of progress, power, and profound change. Your reign, the Victorian era itself, had transformed a nation and reshaped the world, a testament to a single woman's indomitable will. Under your steady hand, the British Empire had not merely expanded, it had become the most formidable global superpower the world had ever witnessed, its reach vast as the heavens, its influence profound as the ocean's depths. The relentless roar of industrial might continued to echo through factories and cities, a timeless anthem of progress, a legacy of innovation and productivity that had reshaped economies and societies.
During your rule, the population of Britain itself had exploded, a human tide swelling its banks, from a modest 16 million to a staggering 37 million, a testament to improved living conditions and societal advancement, however uneven. The territorial reach of the empire, a vast crimson stain on world maps, had expanded from a significant 2 million square miles to an astonishing nearly 13 million square miles, a colossal expansion that brought countless peoples and resources under British sway. This was a period of unprecedented scientific and technological advancement, where discoveries seemed to burst forth like a cascade of glittering diamonds, transforming daily life from communication to transportation. Social and moral values, often championed by Albert and then by your own example, had been solidified, providing a framework of rectitude and duty for generations. You had, against all odds, cultivated a royal image that had weathered countless storms and emerged not just intact, but strengthened, a mighty fortress of public trust.
Your life had been a sweeping narrative, a grand opera of triumph, tragedy, and unwavering duty. You had seen the world transformed by steam and steel, by telegraphs and electricity, by the sheer force of human ingenuity. Your unique position at the heart of this transformation allowed you to act as both observer and participant, a figure who embodied the contradictions and glories of an age that would forever bear your name. And so the curtains finally drew close on the reign of Queen Victoria. Yet the story does not truly end there. A secret, long buried deep beneath the sands of time, about how one seemingly small woman, through sheer iron will and extraordinary resilience, could not only endure unimaginable personal sorrow, but also fundamentally shape an entire empire, would forever be whispered through the corridors of history. Your legacy, an indelible imprint on the very soul of a nation, remains vibrant and alive in every single brick of London, in the ceaseless hum of machines in countless factories, and in the unwavering spirit of a people that you, the Iron Queen, had so profoundly forged and tempered. Victoria, the Iron Queen and industrial might, a name that has passed into the hallowed halls of history, and a story that will live forever, an eternal flame in the memory of mankind.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the Victorian Age. We hope you've been as captivated as we are by Queen Victoria's strength, her sorrows, and her monumental legacy. If this story resonated with you, please show your support by giving us a like and subscribe to our channel for more historical deep dives. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until our next journey through history, farewell.